Hey everybody, my name is Arthur and this is monthly From the Void March 2022 edition, where we take a look at everything that happened in the world of video games, all the news, the game announcements and game releases that took place last month and are worth mentioning or discussing in a bite-sized format for your convenience. So buckle up and here we go. Sony announced PS Plus Extra and Premium tiers. This is clearly and finally an answer to Microsoft's Game Pass, as well as Nintendo's online thing, although that one is not very hard at all to beat. And also an answer to the recent backlash they received when they almost closed the PlayStation 3 and Vita digital stores. So alright, let's break this down first. These new tiers of PS Plus will be launched in June 2022, while the regular PS Plus tier remains exactly the same, only changing its name to PS Plus Essential. In the extra tier, for $100 per year, $40 per 3 months, or $15 per month, you get access to a catalog of up to 400 PlayStation 4 and 5 games to download. Then the premium tier goes for $120 per year, $50 for 3 months, or $18 for 1, and includes an additional 340 games, and among them will be PlayStation 3 games via streaming and PlayStation 1, 2, and PSP games via streaming or download. The premium tier also offers direct streaming access through PlayStation 4, 5, and PCs. Now, let's think about this. First of all, there are lots of crucial details missing here, mainly what games are included in the selections, especially the legacy ones. Another missing information is about the new releases. Most likely, this is not going to be the same as Game Pass. They are probably not including day one releases here. If they were, they would have said it already, as this would have been a major benefit. We won't know anything for certain until June, but if this is the case, the new PS Plus is not as good as Game Pass. It gets even worse if we consider the legacy titles. I mean, don't get me wrong, it is better than nothing that they are making an effort to bring previous generation games to current platforms, and I'm sure that among those 340 games, there will be several worthwhile ones. So, alright, it certainly means that they listen to the criticism, but they are already saying that the PlayStation 3 games are going to be streamable only, which really sucks for most people, and the older titles will be either streamable or downloadable. It's all very vague as for now, and it's probably gonna be in a case-by-case basis, but since 100% of the PlayStation 3 games are streamable, I am guessing that a good part of the PlayStation 1, 2, and PSP titles are also gonna be via streaming. In my perception, I feel like most people who are interested in older games are not looking for a timed right to play them, tied to a subscription that will go away at some point. I, for one, am certainly not interested in that, much like, to me, there is little value in Game Pass or Nintendo Online subscription. I mean, I can see why people do see value in them if they don't care about owning the games, but my point here is that the legacy stuff is aimed at the more hardcore audience who is looking to own the games indefinitely and not just a permission to play tied to a subscription model, which is what PS Plus has always been. If you stop paying for PS Plus, any of those games you got quote-unquote for free will be locked up. Also, another thing, if they're making a bunch of classic games available on PlayStation 4 and 5, this could very well mean that they are planning on closing the PlayStation 3 and Vita digital stores soon. So do keep that in mind, because this is what I think will happen. They're launching these new PlayStation Plus tiers in June, waiting a few months, then announcing once again to be closing the digital stores on PlayStation 3 and Vita for good, because they already have an answer to the major criticism they got last time. So bottom line, if you're someone like me who prefers to own the freaking games you're paying for, things are most likely about to get worse, not better, cause however flawed they are, the PlayStation 3 and Vita digital stores at least allow us to own the damn games. Dragalia Lost, a Nintendo mobile gacha game, was announced to be shutting down soon. The final updates will be in July of this year, and in an undisclosed later date, the servers will be shut down as well. That means that people who put money into the game to create a roster of characters and improve their profiles will have nothing to show for it. As this is coming from a big company like Nintendo, it has relit the discussion of how predatory and detrimental to consumers games as a service can be. At any time and for any reason, they can decide to close them down and leave all the people interested in the game who put loads of time and money into it with nothing. People will argue that whoever gets into this kind of game should know this, but that's a short-sighted argument because it ignores the fact that these games are insanely manipulative, attracting new players by being free to start, but including a bunch of mechanisms such as systems very similar to gambling that bring the rush of the draw tied to very small chances of success, as well as the widely spread microtransactions that are easier to justify in our heads to psychologically manipulate our feeble human brains into getting addicted and spending unreasonable amounts of money into them. These are awful exploitative practices that should be regulated by governments, much like regular gambling is, because it's potentially harmful in the exact same ways and is only not included in the same laws because of loopholes and technicalities that should not matter. Yeah, as you can see, I am passionately mad about this. These predatory schemes are hateful, the people who run these companies should be ashamed, and our governments are failing us. Next, E3 2022 was officially cancelled, meaning not even a digital event will happen this year, and ESA also announced to be focusing all their efforts to E3 2023. So at least this year, Keighley's Summer Game Fest is pretty much the only major event happening in June. However, Summer Game Fest is more like a show instead of an in-person event that concentrates all the publishers and media and all that, so with no E3 this year, this is really the end of an era, it seems, because it will be hard for Keighley to transform Summer Game Fest into an event of the size of E3. I don't even know that he wants that, and even if he does, it just doesn't seem possible in the amount of time available, but he may already have been doing that, so it remains to be seen how he'll go about it. I'm betting that he'll try to expand, at least a little bit, the scope of Summer Games Fest to meet the untapped demand left by E3. In any case, forget about E3 this year and be on the lookout for Summer Game Fest instead. Going back to Sony, they also announced to be acquiring Haven Studios, and this is another studio focusing on live service games. They've been working on one for about 1 year already, and they already had ties with Sony since their creation, which shows that Sony has faith in whatever game they're making. As we covered last month, Sony acquired Bungie to bring in live service experts into the fold in order to release 10 live service games within the next 4 years, and this is certainly another initiative in this direction. I can't say I'm looking forward to any of this, but oh well. Game development studio The Initiative, who is working on the new Perfect Dark game, has had a bunch of staff leaving, about half of the entire team in the last year, and the reason is apparently due to lack of creative autonomy and slow development progress. It is not looking good for this studio and for Perfect Dark fans waiting over 15 years for new entries in the series. In other news, Switch got folders, freaking finally. It's simple, you go to the all software option all the way to the right, press L to create the folder, and from there select the games or apps you wish to group together, and done. I think it's cool that they found a way to create folders without removing the games from the all software screen as usual. And that's it for this piece of news. The sequel to Breath of the Wild was delayed to spring 2023, surprising no one, and we got 2 seconds of new footage showing the Master Sword corroded beyond recognition, and the game still doesn't have a final name, so many people are now saying that it may be because the title has some spoiler quality to it, but I would go even further than that. I'm thinking that it may have something to do with the Zelda timeline. I wholeheartedly believe that they had already planned all this since since before Breath of the Wild. How they just disregarded the timeline in that game to me was just to throw us off, and then when the sequel hits, just wow us all again with how these games connect to the rest of the series. It wouldn't be the first time they did it either, but that's just me. I may be completely wrong about this. Let's see. Another observation about this is that the holidays for Nintendo now only have Pokemon slated for release, so I'm thinking that there is a small possibility that the next Mario game may be fitting that hole, and they may be about to announce it soon. So let's see. Now let's go through the game announcements that took place in March. The biggest one for me was certainly Hyper Light Breaker, which will be not a sequel nor a prequel, but rather parallel to and in the same world of Hyper Light Drifter. We also know that the game will come out to early access in spring 2023, only confirmed on Steam so far. We haven't seen the actual gameplay, only this sick animation, but so far it seems to be filled with rogue elements much like Hades or Returnal, and it's going to be in 3D like Solar Ash, but the aesthetics will be more like Hyper Light Drifter as it's in the same universe. And Drifter is one of my favorite indie games of all time, among the top 20 best games of all time even for me. I love it, while Solar Ash was way less impressive to me. Not a bad game at all, but I was expecting more, so let's hope this one ends up as stellar as Hyper Light Drifter was. Next, we had Square Enix announcing two rather interesting new titles, starting with a completely new IP with a very weird name, the DioField Chronicle. This is looking like it could be a fine evolution of tactical games like Ogre Battle, because it's kind of in real time from the looks of it. I was instantly interested in this because real-time tactical games like Ogre Battle are not very common at all, and I miss them a lot. The characters also bring a heavy Final Fantasy Tactics vibe too, which is great, and this is scheduled for sometime in 2022 on pretty much everything: PlayStation 4, PlayStation 5, Xbox One and Series, Switch and Steam. I have high hopes for DioField Chronicle, whatever a DioField may be. The next one from Square Enix was really surprising and will be reviving a beloved franchise, Vakyrie Profile, baby, yeah! This is Vakyrie Elysium. It's an action RPG now, but it seems to retain a lot of the spirit of the old school titles. People criticize the graphics, which are a bit off, I agree, but I'm happy that they're bringing this series back, and gameplay is king, graphics are secondary. So if it plays well, I'm all in for this. It's coming sometime in 2022 for Steam, PlayStation 4 and PlayStation 5. Capcom announced Exo Primal, which I would trade any day for a Dino Crisis 4 from Capcom, since this is another multiplayer hero thing that I will not play. Though the idea here is awesome, a giant bubble that rains down dinosaurs? That's great, but the competitive hero action shooter thing completely kills it for me. If they at least include a single player campaign mode, but I'm not holding my breath for that. This next one is not a new game, but worth a mention because I've covered this in the past and the physical is really getting expensive for the original version of this game. Jojo's Bizarre Adventure All-Star Battle R. It's an enhanced port of the PlayStation 3 original with all the characters available. It's pretty cool. It's coming for PCs, Switch, Xbox One and Series, PlayStations 4 and 5, and rather soon in fall 2022. CD Projekt Red announced not a new Witcher game, but a new Witcher Saga, and they only showed this image and nothing else on the games themselves, but they revealed that they're being made with the Unreal Engine 5 this time, which is probably good news after the many issues they had with Cyberpunk's Red Engine. Good-looking retro-style action roguelike Astebros, or however it's pronounced, is coming to Switch and Sega Genesis after being successfully crowdfunded on Kickstarter. And how cool is it that we can get new physical games for old consoles 30 years later? Video games are awesome. Next announcement. Ghostbusters Spirits Unleashed was announced. Now, this is not looking very promising for two major reasons. First, the graphics are kinda meh, and second, and most importantly, there seems to be a heavy focus on the competitive multiplayer aspect where one team controls the Ghostbusters and the other one controls the ghosts. I am always skeptical about this kind of gameplay because it didn't work for Dead Space, it didn't work for BioShock, it is more likely to bomb than succeed. but I'm still including it here because this is canonical for the franchise. It picks up after the movies, with the characters having the likenesses of the beloved cast of the original movies, passing the torch to a new team of Ghostbusters and going into the other side, the realm of the ghosts, which could be cool. But keep your hopes way down so not to get too disappointed. Inti Creates announced Azure Striker Gunvolt 3, and now how many Gunvolt games are there already? I think this is the 6th entry in the series at this point. Cool games though. This one is scheduled to release in July 2022, so far confirmed only on Switch. Now for March game releases, starting with the big ones. Square Enix's most recent attempt on games as a service, Babylon's Fall, was a complete flop. People hate it. Read the writing on the wall, Square Enix. Focus on what you do best. Great single-player RPGs and adventure games. Stop trying to chase the trends. Please reconsider this whole live service games as well as NFT initiatives. Please, this is not working for you. That's not who people want you to be, come on. And still on that note, Chocobo GP was released to a lot of retaliation from fans because it's actually a live service type of game, full of in-game purchases despite costing $50 to begin with. It has in-game currencies only obtainable if you pay real money, and a lot of grinding to be done if you want to unlock basic characters such as Cloud, so they can force you into considering paying to reduce the pain that will become playing this game. What is the most baffling about all this is how they made it seem that Chocobo GP was going to be a regular kart racing game like Mario Kart 8 and not like a mobile microtransaction filled game such as Mario Kart Tour. If you look at the trailers, there is no hint at microtransactions. And even worse, they incurred in deceitful and manipulative marketing practices. This is what they did. They gave the reviewers a version of the game without all the microtransactions for review and then implemented them after the early reviews were already out. That's insanely deceitful and should be illegal because they knew it was going to be heavily scrutinized and they would have to deal with a lot of backlash. So straight up just a really coward and dishonest move from Square Enix. Despicable. And now I am officially confused about what is their deal, really, because on one hand they are making some incredible old school revivals such as the Vakyrie profile game, Live Alive, From Mission First, Chrono Cross and Radical Dreamers Edition, as well as some fantastic modern games like Guardians of the Galaxy. But then on the other hand we have Babylon's Fall, Marvel's Avengers, and now Chocobo GP trying to push these horrible pay-to-win live service games, NFTs even, with what Square Enix CEO stated recently. So what's the deal? Are they trying to see what business model is more profitable? Is that it? If so, let's all please not partake in the live service games and show them that we want the great regular non-live service games, please. We have a responsibility here, it's very important, because I really don't want to see Square Enix becoming another EA or Activision, please. Anyway, moving on. Kirby and the Forgotten Land released to stellar scores around the 9 mark, and I'm very happy about that and we'll be picking it up for sure. Ghostwire Tokyo released to good scores but not great, as most people gave it a 7 or 7.5 with a few 8s here and there. Apparently the combat lacks depth and feels too slow and imprecise. Repetition was also an issue that some raised. It was praised for the presentation and story though. I think I'll be picking this one up when the prices go down. Triangle Strategy is out and received pretty much universal praise, with nothing below 8s and some going as high as 9.5s, so an excellent tactical RPG, must play for fans of the genre. Now for the indie or smaller game releases, Tunic finally came out to great scores, mostly 9s, so a pretty stellar top-down Zelda-like indie game, which is not as common as you may think. Most indie Zelda-likes are just okay, so I can't wait to play this one. Imp of the Sun, however, was a little on the underwhelming side, receiving 6s and 7s. Apparently it's just an okay Metroidvania, completely lacking in any trace of originality, so a good one to skip unless you are hardcore on Metroidvania games. Young Souls released to great scores, 8s and 9s. This is a fantastic looking brawler with RPG elements that I'm very much looking forward to play. Aztech The Forgotten Gods released to average or below average scores. I gave it a 6.4 in my review of it, while most other outlets gave it 6s. We all pretty much agree that it has a promising gameplay with the flying combat, but it's hampered by many graphical issues, unfortunately. Then Dawn of the Monsters, a great looking kaiju brawler, released to great scores, 8s all around. Another great one for the rise of beat 'em ups we've been seeing lately, which is a very cool thing that's been happening. And finally, Far Changing Tides, a hauntingly beautiful looking exploration game, released to excellent scores like 9s. This actually came out in the end of February, but I missed it in last month's edition, so I'm including it here. And that's it for the March 2022 edition of Monthly From the Void. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you soon.